Hi, I'm Garrett with IDC Woodcraft, and I'm really glad you've come to this video because I'm going to teach you something brand new about Vectric software today. We are going to learn about circular arrays. Now, circular arrays are like when you can place stars around a circle, but not just stars, anything, right? And I'm going to teach you how to place objects like stars along a vector. So you can make a swirly line like that and have stars really quickly placed along that line. So you'll understand what I'm talking about when I get into this. If you are brand new to CNC routers or the Vcarve software, the Vectric software, just subscribe to this channel. I go through all this stuff for the beginner, and I talk about some advanced stuff. I mean, my intention is to get you there faster than anybody else. So I do a lot of step-by-step stuff, and that's what we're doing here. Yeah, so with that being said, subscribe if you want to learn this stuff. And there's so many people here, right? I'm so humbled that this channel is exploding. And people have sent me lots of emails. I get them every day, a lot of them. And people share with me sometimes very personal stuff. And I'm really honored that I'm entrusted with that kind of stuff. And the dialogues down in the comments. Talk to each other, because this is like a brotherhood, sisterhood kind of thing. And help each other out, right? Ask questions. Okay, well, we are going to learn about circular arrays and drawing along vectors today, placing objects along vectors. And I'm so excited to share this with you. So let's just dive into the Vectric software and have at it.
So we are in the Vectric software, and I remind you this will work in Aspire, Vcarve Pro, and Vcarve Desktop. What we're going to learn today is how to place objects on a circle like this, where the objects are oriented towards the center of the circle. You see when we look at each star, it turns with the circle. And then I'm going to show you how to do the same thing where the stars don't turn with the circle. And again, you can do this with anything, words, groups of objects. I will try to demonstrate a little bit more of that later on. Now, one of the things I want to tell you right up front, there are two kinds of arrays. There's what's called a rectangular array and a circular array. Now, these are obviously in a circle, so this would be a circular array. A rectangular array would look something like this, where objects are placed along lines in a way where you can create a rectangle or a square around them. But there's another function where you can also place stars along a vector. And so I'm going to show that to you too. So the two things we're going to cover are circular arrays and placing stars or objects along a vector. I'm just going to use stars. Maybe we'll demonstrate words later, just so you see. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete everything I have on the screen here and start from scratch. All right. And I'm going to assume that you know how to get to this point where you've set up your job. So the first thing we're going to do is just grab an object. Let's grab a star, and we're just going to place it right here. Now we're on the center line, and it doesn't have to be on a center line. It can be wherever you want. And down at the bottom of your screen is an area called offset and layout, and it has several functions to it. Now remember I showed you the rectangular array. That is this one right here. It's array copy, and they say it's create a linear or block array of copies. What we're going to be working with today is this one. It says circular array, create a circular array of copies, and copy along vectors. The first one we're going to do is a circular copy. So the first thing you want is to have some objects drawn on your screen, one or multiple, and you want to have a defined center point which they are going to revolve around. So in this case, we're going to use the center point right here, 0, 0. So I'm going to select now, since we have an object there and it is selected, the star, we're going to select circular copy. And this is our control panel that has shown up. Now, the first thing you see up here are an X and Y box, and it says selected object size. This is something I'm not going to go into because almost 99.999% of the time you won't ever refer to this. It just picks out the entire area of objects you have selected. So if I had multiple stars selected, this number would draw a rectangle around that whole area and then give me the length and width of the rectangle. The next area is we have rotation center, which is the center about which our objects are going to rotate. You have a checkbox called rotate copies, another one called number of copies, and then the angle. And it's got a couple of selections there, and then the final is group the copies. So the first thing we're going to go to is the rotation center. So this is wherever you want your center point to be. That's going to be the center. Right now we are going to go with the 0, 0 center, and we are going to select the Y and put in a 0, and we're going to select the 0 or the X and put it in a 0. And so now you see a dot has shown up right here, and that tells us that that is going to be our center point. Now if I put a 2 in the X, you're going to see that that dot has moved. So that's telling you visually where the center of your circle is going to be. So we're going to change that back to 0. And now you see this checkbox. It says rotate copies. Now I'm going to select that right now. What that's going to do, you're going to see these little circle here with these little boxes or rectangles around it. When I uncheck that, you see they all line up and down, and when I check it, they all orient based on the center. So it's this checkbox that tells you whether the stars are going to revolve with the rotation or if they're going to stay upright. So right now we're just going to leave that checked, and I'm going to go with the numbers that I have. I'm going to change one number. I'll tell you what I'm doing here in a minute. And I'm going to do one other thing. And now with that checked and my center point being 0, I am selecting 8 stars. I want to make 8 stars, and I want them to rotate around a full circle. So what I have checked is total angle, and I have 360 written in here. So that's 360 degrees of the full circle. And I'm going to select create or copy. And so now we have 8 stars that have revolved around the circle. All the stars have oriented themselves based on where they are on the circle, so the point of the star is always outward. Now if I Control Z that and select the star again, and I come over and click the checkbox, so it's unchecked, and you see all the little icons in this little circle right here are now oriented up and down, and I select copy, you're going to see all the stars are oriented the same way. They are all facing upward. So it's that little checkbox that changes that aspect. So it works both ways. I mean, it gives you a little bit of flexibility in your design. So I'm going to Control Z again, which undoes the last thing I did. And I'm going to select the star again. Now we are still on our center point, 0, 0. And I'm going to change my total angle to 180. Now we still have 8 stars selected here. And when I say copy, it's now going to start making stars, but only around half the circle. But you'll notice that it doesn't go all the way down. And there's a certain reason for that. But first of all, we have 8 stars here. So it did all the stars. It did it at 180. Now I'm going to show you why it didn't come all the way down like that. I'm going to close this, and I'm going to draw a line from the point of this star right here down to the outermost point here, which is the same point. So from that point to that point is 180 degrees. So Vectric will pick up the leftmost aspect of the object, and that would create the half circle. So now I'm going to Control Z twice to get rid of that, and then come back into the circular copy. And what we're going to do now is, you see all my fields are blank again. They're kind of all grayed out because nothing is selected here. So I'm going to select the star and everything's highlighted again. This is back on 0, 0. And now I'm going to come down, and instead of going on total angle, we're going to go on step angle right here. So what that's telling me is it's going to place a star at every angle that I select. Meaning, let's say I want a star to pop up at 50 degrees. And I have 8 stars selected, and I say copy. Now you can see the stars, each one is 50 degrees apart. And it'll continue to do that until it finishes up. Now you see the stars overlapped because I told it 8 stars at 50 degrees apart. So I'm going to Control Z that, and I'm going to change that to, let's go with 30, since it's divisible by 360, and I'm going to think that's 12 stars, and I'm going to calculate, and there we have 12 stars. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Now I'm going to Control Z again and say 13 stars. And then I just go ahead and do it again. Each star is 30 degrees apart. And we still have 12 stars showing up, but there are 13 stars. If I just click off and I select this star right here, and we just come in close, you'll see there's a little bit of purple on it, meaning that there's a star on top of it. If I hit delete, there's still a star there. Now we have 12 stars. So what would happen if you ran a toolpath on the stars and you had extra stars is Vectric will say there's an extra one, it's going to ignore it. So I'm going to Control Z. And that's pretty much it. The last one is the button group copies. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy these again, and we have 13 stars. And then I'm going to click off, and now you can see I can click one star at a time, and each one will highlight. Now if I Control Z that, and I say group copies, I have to select the star again, and I say group copies, and then I create it and come out here and just click off. Now when I click a star, every one of them is going to highlight. So they are now in a group. And that means that if I double click them, I can move them as an entire group without having to select everything. So now I can put it back. I'll Control Z, Z, and Control Z again. And that is it with the circular array. So let's just do it real quick with something like a word. Not that you would do a circular array on words, but we'll do CNC. And I'm going to close. And I'm going to move this up to here. And I'm going to go back into the circular array. And let's do 3 of them. And we are going to use a total angle of 360. And I'm going to say my center point is 0, 0. So I just changed these two to 0. Now we got a 0 marker here. The CNC is highlighted. It's going to make 3 CNCs around that 360, and it's going to distribute them evenly. So I hit copy, and you see it kept them all upright, but you see it's a little bit out of orientation. Again, that's because it's going with the furthest edge to the furthest edge. If I Control Z that and I click CNC, and I tell it to rotate it right here, and I copy, it's going to turn the CNC around with it. So that comes in handy if you create a logo or something like that. And yeah, that's just what came to my mind. Maybe I'll change my logo to something like this. Nah. All right, so we're going to do that. We're going to close out of circular array. So now you understand the circular array and how you can make stars go around a circle. I'll actually show you a project I'm working on where I'm doing that. That got me to thinking about doing this video. So I am coming up with a project. It still looks kind of like a barbershop sign. But I actually purchased this vector of an eagle for $60. I had the option of purchasing it for $4 or $60, and obviously I'm going to take the higher price. Now I picked the $60 one because I am putting together a vector to sell. So I've got quite a bit of work to do on this yet, but give me a comment. Tell me what you think about it so far, and maybe a suggestion of what I could do. Land of the free, home of the brave. I was thinking maybe some military stuff in here. I don't know. Maybe I'll just leave it like that. Who knows? But yeah, I'll look forward to your comments. Okay. But that's what inspired the circular array, because I did a circular array of stars. Okay, so let's do the one where we are following a vector. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a triangle just like that. And we're going to come back over to here. So we closed up the triangle. Now I'm going to draw another line. That'll just come up here and over here. And now I'm going to draw another line, and I'm going to use the draw curves feature. And I'm just going to go kind of crazy. We'll just go all over the place. And then I'm going to escape. Okay, so now we're going to go use the copy along vectors button. So we're going to click that, and you've got several different selections in here too. The first one is copy object. The next one, copy circles. And then we have specify, and it's distance between copies, number of copies, align objects to curve, create copies on new layer, and then reverse direction. So we're going to kind of run through all these things, and we're going to start by just explaining what this does. So I'm going to select the star, and then in this copy along vectors, you also have to select a vector. So I'm going to select the line. Now, the thing to remember is the first objects you pick are the ones that are going to be copied, and the last object is the object that the copied objects are going to follow. So that means that I picked the star first and the line second, so the star is going to be placed along the line how we define it. So now that we've got that cleared up, the first one we have selected is copy the object. And then the other option is copy circles, but you can't pick them both. So this is one or the other. We're going to do copy object. And down below it specifies, it says distance between copies, and then a checkbox or a field where we can enter some information, a number, and then a checkbox, and then it has another radio button, number of copies, the field where we can fill it in, and then we're going to talk about these other things. So right now we're going to do the distance between copies. We have copied the object, and distance between copies is 6 inches. And I am going to before I click copy, what this is going to do, it's going to put a star at the start point of the line of the vector. Now, start point, let's back up for just a second. I'm going to escape, and I'm going to select this vector and hit N for node. And what you're going to see is a little green dot show up down here. And that green dot indicates the start point. Now I know that because that's where I started the line at. When we go up this triangle, the start point is right here because that's where I started the triangle at, and there's the green dot. And the same thing with the swirly line, the green dot is going to show up over here. So that's always considered the start point. And there's your green node right there. So I'm going to hit escape to get out of node mode. I'm going to select the star, hold my shift button down, and then select that bottom vector. And now we're back to all our settings again, which is copy the object. The distance between copies is 6 inches. And all these boxes are unchecked. So we are going to press copy. So what we have is 4 stars that are 6 inches apart. And all the stars are oriented upright. So it could only do what it could fit in there. And since there's a little bit of the line left, that's not 6 inches, it didn't place a star. So I'm going to Control Z that. We're going to select the star again, hold the shift button and select the line. And now we're going to select this little checkbox just below there, where we're going to say force even spacing. Now the 6 inches is a number we can still fiddle with, but it's going to place the stars just a little bit differently because we're forcing even spacing. When I click copy, you're going to see now that the stars are a bit different. Now if I did a measure on the stars, I'm going to use the measure function right here, and I'm going to go from, let's just go from the point to the other point. It is actually 6.67 inches. So what it did was force the first star at the first point and force the last star at the last point, and then evenly space them between each other based along the line. If this was a straight line between these 2 stars, they're less than 6 inches, but when you add up the center of the line to the corner and then down to the center, that is the same distance as it is from here to here. So this is not 6 inches. We told it to force even spacing from beginning to end. Now if I go back into this copy along vectors, and I select this star and now do this other vector with the same setting, it's going to do the same thing when I say create. And now it just forced them around the vector. But you're going to see this is the start point. We got a star on the corner here, but we don't have a star on the corner there. And the reason is because the start point of the vector is here. We drew it up, around, and back, and the end point of the vector is here. So the last star would technically be right here, but it didn't place it there because it knows one is already there. So this is our last star. Now, I'm going to Control Z again. We're going to go back into that. And I'm going to select the star, and then I'm going to select the vector. And now I am going to turn off the force even spacing. And we're going to click copy. And now our stars are 6 inches apart. And ironically, let's just double check that to make sure that they are 6 inches apart. I'm going to use the measure tool. I'm going to select the corner of the star there and the corner of the star there. And it says we are, where is that number? 6 inches apart. So it is able to place these stars evenly all the way around here. Now if Control Z, now I'm going to select this vector, go to node, and I am going to change it just a little bit. If I can, I can't do it with this one. Let's do it with this one. We are going to take this one and shorten that up like that. And then we're going to take out the stars. This video is kind of long, but you're learning about this kind of obscure aspect that will make life a lot nicer. We're going to go back into copy along vectors. We're going to select the star and we're going to select this line. and we are going at 6 inches apart. I'm going to click copy, and they are now 6 inches apart in a very kind of skewed way. If I forced it, Control C, Z, and then forced even spacing, and then tell it to copy, it's going to put one at the beginning, one at the end, and it's going to split the difference. So, and it's picking as close as it can to 6 inches. All right, so Control Z on that one. So I'm going to Control Z that line. I want to get my line length back. There we go. And we're going to delete these 2 stars and these 2 stars. Okay, so I'm going to select the star again. And we are going to go to Shift, select the line again. And now we're going to say number of copies. And we're saying 6 copies. So what it's going to do is going to put a star at the beginning, a star at the end, and it's going to put 4 in the middle, and it's going to split them evenly. When I hit select, there we go. So the best way to do it is number of copies when you're following along vectors. The same thing would happen up here if I did it again. I'm going to select that star, and I'm going to select that vector, number of copies. And it did 6 copies around that vector. Control Z, Control Z. Now we're going to do align objects to curve. I'm going to just start that again. You can see all the stars are oriented in the one direction, up and down. If I Control Z that and align the objects to curve, the stars are now going to be turned along the lines. And so when it comes down here, the star is actually upside down. So that's what the align to curves does. And I'll show you that in a little bit more dramatic way by clicking the star. And I'm going to take this swirly line and I'm going to say copy. So there are 6 stars, and the stars are oriented as if they are following a line. So this one is upside down. This one is sideways. That one's almost right side up. I'm going to Control Z, and now I'm going to uncheck this box which says align objects to curve, and now it's going to place the star based on how it is oriented right here. So I say copy, and all the stars are upright following that line. So we can have as many stars as we want along these kind of lines. I'm going to say 12 stars and then do it again, and now we have 12. So I think you're getting the gist of this whole aspect. Now the next one is create copies on a new layer. The checkbox at the bottom. Basically, when you create the copies, it's going to create a new layer. So right up here top, we have our layers, and I've got one single layer. So I'm going to select create copies to a new layer, and I'm going to say copy, and the stars are created, and it just created a second layer, layer number 2. So that's a nice little feature. So when you want to draw things, like in the case where I am doing this right here, okay, if I wanted to do the stars like that, I would copy it to a new layer, which is exactly what I did. Okay, so the next checkbox is reverse the direction. So basically, the star would start from the end point of the line. If you remember, there was a green dot down here at the start point of this line. If I clicked reverse direction, this would be the start point that it would start to draw the stars at. So there's a lot of control that you get here. Now, the one thing I gotta say I haven't quite figured out is copy circles. So I'm gonna select that, and we're gonna figure this out. So it says, I got the star selected, and it says the distance is 6 inches. And the distance between copies, we'll do, first of all, let's just leave the other one, the number of copies, and I'm going to say 3. And the diameter is 6 inches, so I'm going to say copy, and so we have 3 circles that are 6 inches, and it has placed them in an orientation I can't quite figure out why. So if somebody understands that, and why we would want to do that with the circles, why they have specific placement here for copy circles, please put it down in the comments because I can't figure out the use for this. I'm going to hit Control Z and I'm going to do distance between copies is 6 inches. I'm going to click it again. And now we've got, I don't know if we've got multiple circles. Nope, just one. So don't let that confuse you. I never use this because I don't understand this. But this copy object along a vector is a feature that you will use. If this video is helpful, give me a thumbs up and of course comment, tell me why that circle thing is in there. And again, also give me your ideas on this project here. This will end up on Etsy. So I really want to make it a good patriotic type of project. Now, no offense to people who are not within the United States. I actually want to draw other flags, but I don't know if you guys do it. Okay, well, this is Garrett. Subscribe if you want to know more stuff about the Vectric software, if you are CNC for a beginner, and if you are looking to make money with your CNC machine, sign up to CNC Entrepreneurs, and I'll be doing webinars to train beginners probably in the next week. About every 2 weeks, I think I'm going to be doing this. There's a lot of need for that. If you're interested in that, put a comment down below. This is Garrett. I hope you have an awesome and amazing day in this amazing creative world of CNC. We'll talk to you later.